All righty. I think we are live and we're a few minutes late. We apologize, but better late than never. Thrilled to have George, founder of SoloSuit, with us here today. Just, George, I think this is the fourth time that we've done this, but couldn't be more excited to be here with you. I don't know if you're aware of this, but you were actually our first investment as a fund. And
Glad to be the first.
So, so thrilled to have you here. But before we get into SoloSuit and we talk about the amazing work that you guys are doing, maybe a little bit about you. Give me like a fun fact that not many people know about you.
Fun fact, huh? Well, I lived at Malaya Kahana Beach Park in Oahu for a while, for a few months. So,
That
fun
is
fact.
very different than Utah, I believe.
Yeah, very different. Had a hammock, had a car. It was a fun time.
Was it awesome?
It was. It was. Yeah, the coconuts were.
Sounds like some good living. If you weren't in legal tech, what would you be doing? I know it's a tricky, like I've asked everybody this, but I know for you specifically, that's tricky because you like came out of law school ready to kind of go conquer this problem that you're working on.
I'm happy to be in legal tech. If I wasn't in legal tech, I'd probably just do the pragmatic thing and go wherever the revenue multiples are highest. If I was If I wasn't doing a mission-driven, purposeful startup, I'd probably just go wherever the revenue multiples are highest, which I think is oftentimes in fintech or something along there, or AI these days.
Well, I guess maybe that's like the perfect transition because you're doing this for really awesome reasons. But maybe give us a quick snapshot, like how and why SoloSuit came to be, some of the originating story, because it's yeah, I would love to hear that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're very much all about the mission of superpowering consumers to win disputes. So, in my first year of law school, I bought a car that turned out to be a lemon. It died on me 3 days after I bought it. Literally 3 days after I bought the car, it died. It was like a good used car, pretty expensive for a law student even. And I tried finding an attorney that would help me get my money back, but I couldn't find one that would take my case. I thought, man, if I'm in a building full of lawyers and I can't find a lawyer to hire, who else out there can't find a lawyer to hire? And it turns out lots of people. So I kind of looked into the problem a little bit closer, found that the biggest category of lawsuits in the whole US are for debt collection, and attorneys almost never take those cases because they haven't figured out how to service them profitably. So then, you know, long story short, teamed up with a professor, also some other students at the law school, to make SoloSuit to make it easy for people to respond to debt lawsuits.
And did this just derail the latter 2 years of your law school? Like how was that blend? I know you formally jumped in right afterwards, but which is when we caught up with you. But
It worked out really well. BYU has quite an entrepreneurial focus, and we went through several entrepreneurship competitions on campus where we won quite a bit of grant money that gave us a good start. So it really kind of blended in with my education.
that's awesome. So when I've used the construct of impactful work for you a couple times already on this webinar. But I think about the work that you guys do every day, and we actually talk about you quite frequently in the work. You represent like a piece of legal tech that people don't think of a ton. Lots of folks they hear legal tech, their mind goes right into business of law or practice of law applications for the big law firms. But you're actually serving a completely neglected part of the population when it comes to access to legal services. Are there some stats that kind of you wake up and you think about every day or every month, or things that will just get everybody here thinking about how big of a challenge that the problem is that you're taking on, or the types of access to legal services, or any stats that go through your mind?
Yeah, certainly, without a doubt. And SoloSuit, as we've as we've been growing, we initially started helping people respond to debt lawsuits. And then we found that most people, after they respond, their ultimate resolution that they're looking for is to settle their lawsuit. So we've now expanded and added on a settlement marketplace where we are working collaboratively with the consumer as well as the collector. And we're establishing ourselves as a trusted mediator between the two parties, between really historically some of the two most adversarial parties that there are in society, the debtor and the collector. We're trying to find mutual interest between them and get good settlements between the two. So on the debt lawsuit side, just responding to lawsuits, there's about 10 million people that are sued every year in the US. Without SoloSuit, 90% of the time people just lose their case. With SoloSuit, I mean, if somebody uses SoloSuit, then they're 100% of the time they are responding successfully to the lawsuit.
Say that one more time. 10 million people a year?
Yeah, 10 million people a year, yeah, are sued for debt.
Wow. And what percent of them do you think like have access to some alternative legal before you? Like what percent had access to some sort of legal services?
Less than 10%.
So over 9 million people or 9 million people a year directionally
Yep.
don't have any place to turn.
Yep. And most of the time this is really like the end of the road, the bottom of the barrel of credit cards, oftentimes. Or at least accessible consumer debt. So it's like oftentimes credit card debt or personal loans. And oftentimes medical debt gets conflated with credit card debt. So oftentimes what happens with medical debt is you have like a big medical bill, you might pay that off, but then in order to make ends meet, you use your credit card more, or you pay it off with a credit card, and then it just becomes credit card debt.
Wow. And then just I know you've been just hacking away extraordinary amount of friction in the system
Yeah,
along the way for these folks, like just really hard to to kind of navigate.
for sure. Yeah, and really the 10 million number is just the tip of the iceberg, right? With the settlement marketplace, we're really positioning ourselves to help the 70 million people in the US. So, a very large portion of the adults
Yeah.
in the US, like more than a third of the adults in the US, who are in collections during the course of a year. So about 70 million people are in collections during the year.
Wow.
We are helping those folks settle their debts for less and get back on the right track.
And help me, what types of outcomes have you guys seen, on kind of both sides of it? Like what's been the result of this? I know I think you've helped north of, hundreds of thousands of people have come to your website and interacted. And yeah, what have some of the results been?
Yeah, we've seen great outcomes for sure. So, for example, we had one consumer. Let's call her Margaret. She came to us. She was being sued for $21,000, which was a personal loan stemming from her business that she shut down during the COVID pandemic, and she used our software to respond to the lawsuit. And then she wanted to settle the debt because she agreed that she owed a portion of the debt. Then she made an offer on our SoloSettle marketplace to settle, and it settled for it was a $21,000 lawsuit. It settled for $11,000.
Wow.
She was in a position where she was able to pay that as a lump sum, I think, out of like a retirement account or something like that. And so in about 2 weeks, she deleted $10,000 in debt using SoloSuit, and that was like the only debt on her record. So then that kind of put her in a great spot to get back at it and hopefully make another business.
And it seems like it's a win-win on the flip side. The debt collector, they got that resolved. They don't have to worry about taking her to court or all the next steps and all those legal fees involved. Kind of it really is a win-win.
Yep, that's right. Yep, a win-win. Yeah, and it's way better than the alternatives, right? So without SoloSuit, she most likely would have been one of the 90% that lost her debt lawsuit automatically. And then like she wouldn't even respond, so then she loses by default. And then her wages would be garnished. The federal maximum is 25% out of every paycheck until the total balance was paid. The interest likely wouldn't have stopped, so she would have had the personal loan interest, and then that would have compounded with an additional 10% statutory interest on the judgment. And depending on what her income is, she could have been paying that debt as a garnishment for like the rest of her life. So that's like the alternative without SoloSuit. It's also better than bankruptcy, right? Where bankruptcy would have taken a long time. She would have had to spend like $3,000 to declare bankruptcy. Her credit score would have taken a hit, would have been on her credit score for 7 years, whereas this is showing that she paid her debt to some amount, and it will show as like settled on her credit report, which is much better than delinquent or even bankruptcy.
So what do you see as like, you sitting as the CEO, you have this amazing product, you're helping thousands of people on a monthly basis. Like, what are your biggest challenges? Is it just getting the word out and making people aware that you exist?
Yeah, I would say so. It's more about changing the education of the consumers. We're at a point right now where I think so a good portion of the people that are looking for a way to respond to a lawsuit find us.
Okay.
Right, oftentimes, people will have like a user journey that they tell us about where they get sued for debt, and then they search the name of the plaintiff because they have never done business with the plaintiff. Like that, discover credit card debt, but now they're being sued by Midland Funding. They don't know who Midland Funding is. Turns out they're the most popular debt buyer in the U.S. So they see our article about Midland Funding, and then they search again, like, what do I do to win a lawsuit against Midland Funding? And then they search on Google, and then they see another one of our articles talking about how to win a lawsuit. And then they search on Google, hey, what's the statute of limitations for a debt lawsuit in Kentucky? Then they see our article about statute of limitations. So we have like a lot of educational material that people read and come to us through. But I think there's a good portion of people who, when they get sued for debt, they don't think there is an option, so they don't do anything. They just kind of keep their head in the sand.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make the outcomes for the consumers that come to us so good that they'll tell people, like, hey, I just deleted $10,000 in debt last week. And so that the educational norms will change. And that's really where we're at with the settlement marketplace. Also, the other big challenge that we're like immediately focused on is really uh, working with the collectors and gaining. We have the trust of the consumers, and now we're trying to gain the trust of collectors
Yeah.
so that we can broker that into a settlement that works for everybody.
Yeah. And what types of measures, how are you thinking about success? How are you thinking about the impact that you drive? You know, you said earlier you're not necessarily optimizing for vertical that has the highest revenue multiple. You're optimizing for lots of things, including impact and how you can help folks. But what do you think about?
Some of the main metrics are the ones that we track on our website that we are happy to share with folks. So we've helped people respond to $1.4 billion in debt lawsuits so far. We've also helped over 220,000 people respond to them.
That is very impressive. What are you excited about in the future? Like, what's got you excited the next year or two?
What I'm excited about in the future right now, uh, I'm excited now for the future is really the potential of our settlement marketplace. I think we're doing something that has not been done before, which is really providing a scalable alternative dispute resolution software for folks. Right? Only a fraction of cases that are filed in court ever actually go to trial. Most of them get settled or resolved before trial because it's too expensive to go to trial. And what we're building here is a like a marketplace or a platform to settle these lawsuits consistently in a way that's like a win-win for both of the parties outside of court. And we think that once we figure out the debt space, we'd love to take that to other types of cases as well, so that people can settle all kinds of cases for much cheaper than if they had to go to court.
Yeah, we have not seen, as you know, we see quite a few companies on a monthly basis. We have not seen much on that side, and we think it's a huge opportunity. When you look at the backlog in the courts, and and just a lot of these things don't need to go that far. There's no reason. So we think there's lots of opportunity there. I think.
Right.
If folks want to learn more about what you're doing, how should they do that? How can they reach out to you? Anything you'd ask of the folks listening now or are going to watch the replay of this?
Yeah, as far as get in touch with us, our website is SoloSuit.com. I usually tell people, hopefully you're not our next customer, but if you need to be, we're here for you. We're here to help you out. I'm on LinkedIn most of the time is where I am on. For social media, just George Simons on LinkedIn, pretty easy to find. That is main places people can find us. As far as what's happening in the audience, always trying to spread the word with judges in the court system. We have our logo on our documents. So I think a good number of judges are seeing our documents filed in court. So always trying to have more beneficial conversations with them. Also talking to folks at large banks and these debt buying organizations. Most large banks that are offer credit cards, and they usually charge off about 2 to 4% of their debts every year. And those folks are becoming like prime customers of SoloSuit. We're trying to help them get a resolution with those banks.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for taking a few minutes.
Thank you, Zach.
All righty. And thanks everybody for listening.